The Great Abandonment. The emergency broadcast cut through the void of space like a blade through silk. Captain Sarah Chin gripped the armrest of her command chair aboard the cargo vessel, New Horizon, as the holographic display flickered to life, showing the grand chamber of the Galactic Assembly. The massive circular hall buzzed with panic as representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in emergency session. Sarah had seen many things during her 15 years hauling supplies across the Outer Rim, but never had she witnessed such fear in the eyes of beings who controlled entire star systems. The Altarians, with their flowing robes and crystalline features, huddled together like frightened children. The massive Corvan delegates, usually so proud of their warrior heritage, stood with heads bowed in defeat. At the center of it all, Prime Chancellor Vextar of the Draxian Empire raised his four arms for silence. His reptilian features were grim as he addressed the assembly through universal translators that carried his words to every corner of known space. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Vextar began, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. The Zephyrian plague has reached critical mass. Our greatest scientists confirm what we feared most. This ancient disease cannot be stopped with current technology. It spreads not just through biological contact, but through quantum resonance fields that affect all higher-order consciousness. Sarah felt her heart sink. The Zephyrian plague had been reported on the Outer Rim worlds for months. Entire colonies had gone silent overnight, their populations apparently dying in their sleep as their neural patterns were somehow dissolved. She had hoped the galaxy's advanced civilizations would find a solution. Therefore, Vextar continued. By unanimous vote of the Core Worlds Alliance, all major civilizations will immediately withdraw to their home systems and establish quantum barrier fields. The Outer Rim territories are hereby declared lost. We cannot risk the survival of our core populations for settlements that are already beyond saving. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates protested, others wept, but Sarah noticed that the most powerful representatives remained silent. The ethereal collective, masters of energy manipulation, were already fading from view as they prepared to retreat to their dimensional pocket universes. The mechanical synthesis empire's representatives had begun powering down, ready to shut their borders with impenetrable shield walls. Sarah's communications officer, Lieutenant Tom Rodriguez, turned from his console with disbelief written across his face. "Captain, they're really doing it." Long-range sensors show the Altarian fleet pulling back from the Kepler sector. The Corvan battle groups are abandoning their forward positions. Even the trading posts are being evacuated. Through the viewport, Sarah could see the beginning of the Great Retreat. Massive dreadnoughts that had patrolled these space lanes for centuries were turning toward the galactic core. Transport ships carrying diplomats and corporate executives streaked past, heading for the safety of the inner worlds. The sight made her stomach turn. "What about the colonies?" asked Dr. Amanda Foster, the New Horizons chief medical officer. Her voice carried the weight of someone who had treated patients across dozens of worlds. "There are millions of people out there, families, children, entire communities that have never even seen their species' homeworlds." Tom's fingers danced across his console as he pulled up the grim statistics. According to the shipping manifests and colonial records, there are approximately 57 inhabited worlds in the Outer Rim. Population estimates range from small research stations with a few hundred people to major agricultural worlds with populations in the millions. Sarah closed her eyes and did the math. Even conservative estimates put the number of abandoned souls at over 12 million beings. Humans, yes, but also Altarians who had been born in distant colonies, Corvan farmers whose families had worked the frontier for generations, and dozens of other species who called the Outer Rim home. "Captain," came the voice of Chief Engineer Marcus Webb over the intercom. "You need to see this. I'm patching a feed from the colonial networks to the main screen." The display shifted to show a patchwork of desperate messages flooding the communication channels. A human family on New Terra begging for evacuation as their children slept fitfully, showing early signs of the plague's neural disruption. An Altarian research team on Kepler Station requesting immediate medical assistance as their colleagues began falling into unexplained comas. A mixed-species mining operation on the asteroid belt of Vega Prime, where workers were barricading themselves in their habitats as the plague spread through their community. Sarah's second-in-command, Commander Elena Vasquez, stood beside her chair. The veteran officer had served on both military and civilian vessels, and her experience showed in the calm way she processed the unfolding crisis. Sarah, I'm reading 43 distress signals from human settlements alone. Add in the other species, and we're looking at over 200 colonies crying out for help. The weight of the moment settled on Sarah's shoulders like a lead blanket. The New Horizon was just one ship among humanity's modest fleet of cargo vessels, research ships, and passenger transports scattered throughout the Outer Rim. Humans had never been a major power in galactic politics. They were traders, explorers, and settlers who had earned respect through hard work and fair dealing, but they lacked the massive military fleets or advanced technology of the core world civilizations. Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral James Harrison aboard the Earth vessel Perseverance, Tom announced. He's coordinating with all human ships in the sector. Admiral Harrison's weathered face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Sarah could see the bridge of humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, though it looked primitive compared to the alien dreadnoughts that were fleeing toward safer space. All human vessels, this is Admiral Harrison, he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded ships through the worst storm space could offer. Earth Command has issued evacuation orders. All civilian and military vessels are to return to Sol system immediately for defensive positioning. We're not equipped to handle a crisis of this magnitude. Sarah felt her crew's eyes on her. Following Earth's orders meant safety for her ship and the 43 people under her command. The New Horizon would join the other human vessels in a protective formation around Earth, waiting to see if the plague would spread to their home system. It was the logical choice, the safe choice. But safety had never been humanity's defining characteristic. Admiral, Sarah said, activating her communication array. This is Captain Chen aboard the New Horizon. Request permission to delay compliance with evacuation orders. Harrison's eyebrows rose in surprise. Captain Chen, the orders are clear. We can't risk human lives on a hopeless rescue mission. The major powers have already determined that the Outer Rim cannot be saved. With respect, sir, Sarah replied, looking around at her crew. She saw Tom nodding encouragement, Dr. Foster preparing her medical supplies, and Elena checking tactical displays with the focus of someone ready for a fight. The major powers also determined that those people weren't worth saving in the first place. Maybe that's where they went wrong. Sarah stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars where millions of beings waited for help that their own governments had decided would never come. Admiral, I've spent 15 years out here. I've delivered supplies to Altarian research stations, carried medical equipment to Corvin farming colonies, and helped build the trading networks that connected dozens of species across the Rim. These aren't just statistics on a colonial manifest. They're neighbors, friends, and families who trusted the galaxy to stand by them. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Sarah could hear similar conversations taking place across the human fleet through the communication channels, captains and crews wrestling with the same impossible choice between safety and conscience. Captain Chen, Admiral Harrison said after a long pause, you understand that Earth cannot officially support unauthorized rescue operations. If you proceed, you'll be acting without government backing or military support. Sarah smiled grimly. Understood, Admiral. But I'm not acting as a representative of Earth Command. I'm acting as a human being who refuses to abandon people in need. She turned to her crew. Anyone who wants to transfer to another vessel before we begin this mission, speak now. What we're about to do will be dangerous, probably impossible, and definitely unauthorized. Tom was the first to respond. Captain, I've been monitoring the distress signals. There are kids out there, families with newborns, elderly people who can't evacuate on their own. Count me in. Dr. Foster stepped forward. I took an oath to help the sick and injured. That oath didn't have any fine print about species or political boundaries. Elena checked her tactical display one more time. We're talking about coordinating rescue operations across 57 worlds with maybe 20 human ships. The logistics alone should be impossible. She paused and grinned. Good thing humans have a reputation for doing impossible things. One by one, every member of the crew volunteered to stay. The communications officer who would coordinate with distant colonies, the engineer who would keep their overworked ship running, the cargo handlers who would help load refugees, and the pilots who would navigate dangerous routes to reach isolated settlements. Admiral Harrison's expression shifted from concern to something that might have been pride. Captain Chen, for the record, Earth Command cannot endorse your mission. He paused, and his voice dropped to a whisper. Off the record, give them hell. As the transmission ended, Sarah looked around at her crew and felt a surge of determination. Through the viewport, she could see other human vessels changing course, turning away from the safety of Earth toward the abandoned worlds of the Outer Rim. The cargo ship Phoenix, the research vessel Discovery, the passenger liner Unity, and dozens of others were joining what would become known as the most audacious rescue operation in galactic history. Elena, plot a course for the Kepler sector. Sarah ordered. Tom, start coordinating with the other ships. I want to know the location and status of every colony, every research station, and every inhabited rock in our operational area. Dr. Foster, prepare the medical bay for incoming casualties and start researching everything we know about the Zephyrian plague. If we're going to save these people, we need to understand what we're fighting. As the New Horizon changed course toward the first of many rescue operations, Sarah felt the weight of history settling around them. The great civilizations of the galaxy had made their choice, sealing their borders and abandoning millions to save themselves. Now it was humanity's turn to choose, and their answer would echo across the stars for generations to come. The galaxy had abandoned hope, but humanity was just getting started, rising to the challenge. 3 weeks into what the galactic media had dubbed humanity's folly, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the converted cargo bay of the New Horizon, watching the impossible become routine. The space that once held grain shipments and manufactured goods now housed a coordination center that would have impressed the admirals of major civilizations. Holographic displays showed the status of rescue operations across 47 star systems. Human cargo ships worked alongside converted passenger vessels, their holds filled with refugees from a dozen different species. What had started as a desperate mission by 23 human ships had grown into something unprecedented in galactic history. Captain, incoming report from the cargo vessel Determination, called Tom Rodriguez from his improvised communications station. They've successfully evacuated the agricultural colony on Centauri Prime. That's 8,000 Corvin farmers and their families, plus about 300 humans who were working the grain processing facilities. Sarah nodded, marking another successful operation on the master display. The numbers were staggering. In 3 weeks, humanity's small fleet had evacuated over 400,000 beings from 63 different locations. They had rescued Altarian scientists from research stations, pulled Corvin families from farming worlds, and saved countless mixed-species communities that the major powers had written off as acceptable losses. Dr. Amanda Foster approached with a data pad, her face showing the exhaustion that had become common among the crew. Sarah, I've been analyzing the medical data from our rescued populations. Something doesn't add up about this plague. Sarah looked up from the tactical displays. What do you mean? The Zephyrian plague supposedly kills by disrupting neural patterns through quantum resonance, Dr. Foster explained, pulling up biological scans on her portable display. But I've been examining the victims we found, and the neural damage patterns are inconsistent with quantum disruption. It looks more like targeted genetic manipulation. Commander Elena Vasquez joined them, having overheard the conversation. Are you suggesting this isn't a natural plague? I'm suggesting that someone wants us to think it's natural, Dr. Foster replied. The neural patterns I'm seeing match research I did on biological weapons during my time at Earth Medical Command. This plague was designed, not evolved. Before Sarah could respond, Tom's voice cut through the busy chatter of the coordination center. Captain, you need to see this. We're getting a transmission from the Altarian research station at Vega 7. They're not calling for evacuation. They're calling for a meeting. The main display shifted to show Dr. Zixera, the Altarian xenobiologist who ran the Vega 7 research facility. Her crystalline features were streaked with exhaustion, but her multifaceted eyes glowed with excitement. Captain Chen, Dr. Zixera began, her harmonic voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. My team has made a discovery that changes everything we understand about the plague. We need to meet in person. What we found is too dangerous to transmit over open channels. Sarah made the decision instantly. Helm, set course for Vega 7. Maximum speed. As the New Horizon changed course, Sarah gathered her senior staff in the ship's small conference room. The space was cramped with Elena, Dr. Foster, Chief Engineer Marcus Webb, and Tom crowding around a table designed for cargo manifests, not strategic planning. Marcus, what's our fleet status? Sarah asked. The chief engineer pulled up technical displays on his portable console. We've got 37 human vessels still operational in the rescue zone. The Determination is running on backup power after overloading their systems evacuating that farming world. The Unity is packed with over 2,000 refugees and barely maintaining life support. But every ship is still functional, and our improvised supply network is holding together. Sarah marveled at what they had accomplished. Human engineering had never been the most advanced in the galaxy, but it had always been practical and adaptable. When cargo ships needed to house refugees, human crews had quickly converted storage bays into living spaces. When communication systems were overwhelmed by coordinating rescue operations across multiple star systems, human technicians had jury-rigged networks that connected everything from military transponders to civilian entertainment systems. What's remarkable, Elena added, consulting her tactical notes, is how the other species have responded to our efforts. We've had volunteers from every colony we've rescued. Altarian scientists are sharing their research. Corvan engineers are helping modify our ships, and even the typically isolationist Zentheri have contributed their meditation techniques to help with stress management among the crews. Dr. Foster nodded enthusiastically. The cooperation has been incredible. I've learned more about interspecies medicine in the past 3 weeks than I did in 4 years at medical school. The Altarians have shown us energy healing techniques that are helping people recover from plague exposure, and the Corvan herbalists have contributed botanical remedies that are actually slowing the plague's progression. 2 hours later, the New Horizon docked with Vega 7 research station. Sarah and her team were met by Dr. Zixera and a mixed group of researchers who looked like they hadn't slept in days. The station's laboratories buzzed with activity as scientists from multiple species worked side by side. Captain Chen, Dr. Zixera said, her harmonic voice tight with urgency, what I'm about to show you will change how the galaxy understands this crisis. Follow me. She led them to a secured laboratory where holographic displays showed complex molecular structures and genetic sequences. Sarah might not have been a scientist, but she could recognize the look of a breakthrough when she saw it. The Zephyrian plague is not what the Galactic Assembly believes it to be, Dr. Zixera explained. It's not an ancient disease that randomly resurfaces. It's a biological weapon, specifically designed to target the neural patterns of advanced civilizations. She manipulated the holographic display to show genetic markers and quantum resonance patterns. The plague specifically attacks the brain structures that enable faster-than-light communication and quantum consciousness manipulation. The species being affected are those with the most advanced mental capabilities. Dr. Foster leaned forward, studying the data. But that would mean... Yes, Dr. Zixera confirmed. Humans are naturally immune. Your neural patterns operate on different quantum frequencies than the species being affected. You're not catching the plague because you literally cannot catch it. Sarah felt the implications hit her like a physical blow. Someone released a weapon that would eliminate the major galactic powers while leaving humans untouched. Dr. Zixera nodded grimly. And there's more. The weapon was designed to be self-limiting. In approximately 6 months, it will burn itself out completely, leaving no trace of its artificial origin. Whoever did this intended to eliminate the current power structure and position humanity as the dominant species in the galaxy. Elena spoke the question they were all thinking. Who would do something like this? We believe it was a faction within the Synthetic Alliance, Dr. Zixera replied. They've been advocating for what they call biological correction of organic species for centuries. This would be their ultimate solution. Sarah stood in stunned silence for a moment, processing the magnitude of what they had learned. Someone had committed genocide on a galactic scale to benefit humanity, and most humans didn't even know it was happening. Doctor, Sarah said finally, can this weapon be stopped? Not stopped, Dr. Zixera replied, but its effects can be neutralized. The same quantum resonance frequencies that make the plague so effective can be used to create a counteragent, but it would require a coordinated effort across multiple star systems, using technology from dozens of species. Sarah looked around at her team and saw the same determination she felt reflected in their faces. What do you need? Over the next 72 hours, the abandoned Outer Rim became the center of the most ambitious scientific project in galactic history. Human ships served as mobile laboratories and communication hubs, connecting researchers across 50 star systems. The species that had been written off as expendable by their own governments now worked together with a unity that would have been impossible under normal political circumstances. Altarian energy specialists worked with human engineers to create quantum resonance amplifiers. Corvin biologists collaborated with Dr. Foster to synthesize the biological components of the counteragent. The mechanical Zen theory, who had been abandoned by their creators, contributed processing power that made complex calculations possible. Sarah found herself coordinating not just a rescue mission, but a counterstrike against the greatest act of terrorism in galactic history. Human ships carried research materials between worlds, their crews serving as links in a chain of cooperation that spanned light years. The breakthrough came during the 4th week. Dr. Zixera's excited transmission reached every human ship simultaneously. We have it. The counteragent is ready for deployment. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Using the same communication networks that had spread the original plague, they would broadcast the quantum frequencies needed to neutralize the weapon. Every human ship would serve as a transmission node, their combined output creating a galaxy-wide healing wave. All ships, this is Captain Chen, Sarah broadcast to the human fleet. In 30 minutes, we're going to cure a plague that was designed to destroy entire civilizations. We're going to save people who were abandoned by their own governments. And we're going to show the galaxy what happens when humans decide to care about something. The transmission began simultaneously from 37 human ships scattered across the Outer Rim. Sarah watched the displays as quantum healing frequencies spread through space at faster-than-light speeds, carried by the same networks that had once spread death. Within hours, reports began flooding in. Plague victims on distant worlds were waking up from their comas. Research stations that had gone silent were coming back online. Entire colonies that had been given up for dead were reporting full recoveries. But the most stunning report came from Tom Rodriguez as he monitored the galactic communication networks. Captain, the core world civilizations are detecting the transmissions. The Draxian Empire is demanding to know what we're doing. The Altarian High Council is. They're asking if we need assistance. Sarah smiled grimly. Tell them the Outer Rim is handling the situation, but they're welcome to come help with the cleanup. 6 months later, Captain Sarah Chen stood before a packed assembly hall on New Geneva Station, watching as representatives from across the galaxy struggled to process what had happened. The great civilizations that had fled to their core worlds were being forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The species they had written off as primitive had not only survived the greatest crisis in galactic history, but had solved it. Admiral Harrison stood to present the final report to the Galactic Assembly. The biological weapon known as the Zephyrian Plague has been completely neutralized. All affected populations have made full recoveries. The perpetrators from the Synthetic Alliance have been identified and arrested. Total casualties, 0. He paused and looked directly at the core world representatives who had fled during the crisis. This was accomplished by a volunteer fleet of 37 human vessels, working in cooperation with the species they rescued from abandonment. The hall erupted in discussion, but Sarah was no longer listening to political debates. Through the station's viewport, she could see ships from dozens of species working together to rebuild the Outer Rim colonies. Human cargo vessels worked alongside Altarian research ships and Corvan agricultural transports. The abandonment that had once seemed like a tragedy had become the foundation for the strongest interspecies alliance in galactic history. Dr. Foster approached with a final medical report. Sarah, the cooperation protocols we developed during the crisis are being adopted by medical facilities throughout the galaxy. The species integration techniques we pioneered are becoming the standard for multi-species operations. Belina joined them with tactical reports showing the new defense networks being established throughout the Outer Rim. The security partnerships we built are holding strong. Nobody's going to be able to abandon these worlds again. Sarah nodded, feeling a satisfaction deeper than any career achievement. They had started with an impossible rescue mission and ended up changing the entire galaxy. When the established powers had turned away, humans had stepped forward. When civilizations had chosen safety over compassion, humanity had chosen to care. The galaxy had abandoned hope, but humanity had given it back.